Welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange on the Mesh Podcast Network, a monthly conversation about startups and small business with ideas, tools, and advice to operate your business more effectively. On today's show, our guest is Jen Paulson, the founder and CEO and creator of Siggy Loden Sportswear, a new business with a focus on making a better sports bra. Jen is going to share her story and the challenges of starting an apparel company and some lessons from her entrepreneurial journey. We'll also have our Small Business of the Month feature, where we'll be sharing some interesting businesses that you should be checking out. My name is Jeff Newville. I'm your co-host and director of the Small Business Center at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. I'm joined by my co-host, Gary Muller, who is Dean of the School of Workforce Productivity and the Arts at Catawba Valley Community College. Hello, Gary. How are you doing this fine Friday?
Jeff, I'm doing great. Everything going well with you?
I have no complaints. I'm pleased to report that we just finished up our Skills USA Championship, which are competitions for students across the country. And I was pleased to find out yesterday that our entrepreneurship team won a gold medal.
Congratulations. It's another entrepreneurship championship, national championship. And you, Gary, are involved in this whole skills program with like dozens of teams from automotive to graphic arts to goodness knows what. I can't keep up with all these competitions. And how many medals did CVCC win this year? Well, we're so proud of our Skills USA team. And again, our entrepreneurship team has won either the national championship or been the runner-up 7 years in a row. So that's a pretty amazing statistic. And this year, we set a record for the country, even going through the pandemic, that we had 17 top 9 finishes in all of our competitions, as you say, from automotive to welding to entrepreneurship to the outstanding chapter, advertising, graphic design, too many to name. It's pretty amazing, and that's a tribute to our students and our faculty advisors, of which you are one, and we're just really, really excited. We did win 7 national medals, first, second, or third, but we had 17 top 9 finishes.
I didn't know when top 9 became a big thing, but the interesting thing about that is this was all done virtually, and our hosts, the people that run this competition, wanted to put. They did it virtually, so they wanted to zoom in 9 people, and I guess that's what fits well on a screen. So
that's why it's 9.
Yes, that's the
I
reason.
Couldn't figure out why it's not your normal top 10.
Yeah, it's like a Hollywood Square situation.
It is, and that makes all the sense in the world. So they could have them up there, and it did work. I think they really tried to do a great job virtually, and I think it did well. Yeah. Quite honestly.
Well, I know you put in a lot of work. I know your wife, Tammy, put in a lot of work. So congratulations to you both for the way you represent.
Tammy's the star of putting the back office together and all those presentations.
Let's introduce another star.
I want to do that.
Let's introduce our guest, Jennifer Paulson. And Jen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm coming to you from Green Bay, Wisconsin, home of the Packers.
Well, welcome. We will not make fun of your Wisconsin accent,
Thank you.
And try not to ask you difficult questions about Aaron Rodgers during today's.
I've told my friends I'm not talking about that. Nope, not talking about Aaron.
Well, as an introduction, Jen is the creator and CEO of a business called Siggy Loden Sportswear, which is building a better sports bra to empower women to become their best selves, both outside and inside. Jen is a self-described type A perfectionist, which, this might not be the right podcast for you, but we are glad that you joined us. She's got an Ivy League education and a master's in divinity, for good measure. From a young age, she showed entrepreneurial spirit, a love of fashion, and a knack for sales and finance. Growing up in Wisconsin, she was a child entrepreneur and inventor, coming up with a fridge for her wagon. Not that I think you need that. Not that you really need a refrigerator in Wisconsin, or I guess maybe you do sometimes. New shades of lipstick, building snowboards with multiple rooms, and she even started her first business at age 7.
That's amazing.
Prior to starting Siggy Loden, she distinguished herself in banking, sales, and operations. She spent 10 years with an international cosmetics company, overseeing teams and the business is profit and operations. She decided to take her skills to South Beach. No, she decided to take her skills and developed her career and focused on helping others, specifically women dealing with the challenges of working out with a large chest. In Siggy Loden Sportswear, Jen has put her education experience and personal exercise experience to work to create the perfect sports bra. And we're really pleased that you can join us on the Entrepreneur Exchange. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, guys.
So first off, tell us a little bit about the name of your company and where it came from.
Well, so the name of the company is Siggy Loden Sportswear.
Okay.
And my grandma immigrated from Norway. So this is my dad's mother, and her name was Signe Loden, and they called her for short Siggy Loden. And she was the one that raised my dad, obviously. And she was a very empowered type of woman. She did a lot of things that women in those days wouldn't necessarily be encouraged to do. So we thought when we were coming up with the name for this, let's take it from someone from the family, and let's take it from someone that had empowered women in the past, because that's really what I want this company to do, is to empower women and get people feeling like sports bras are something normal to talk about. Doesn't have to be something that's under the covers. It's something that people can just talk about on a daily basis. There's sports bras and breasts and exercise. And that's why we came up with Siggy Loden.
Okay. Well, and thank you for not making fun of me for mispronouncing it. I apologize for that.
No, everyone does. We're thinking actually of maybe dropping the Loden and just calling it Siggy, because everyone knows how to pronounce Siggy, and that's kind of cute and catchy. But the Siggy Loden part of it, I would say that 99% of people can't pronounce Loden even after I've pronounced it. So we might drop the Loden.
Okay. So, we talked a little bit. You gave us some information that I shared in your bio in terms of your journey, but, why, how did you get to this point in time? It sounds to me like you've had a pretty successful career in business, and some people just have that entrepreneurial spark and need to do it. So how did you go from your business career to a point where you decided, hey, I want to start a sports activewear company and focus on bras?
Yep. So I worked for Lush Cosmetics. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lush. It's a UK-based company. Skincare and hair care, bath bombs are what it's pretty much known for. And I was in charge of the North American operations, retail operations and sales. It was my responsibility to make sure that each of the 250 stores in the company were profitable. So that's what I did for about 10 years. And I traveled around a lot. So I was traveling 3 to 4 weeks a month. Which made it kind of hard to, have permanence anywhere. I was always up in there, and I was always, in the UK or in Australia or in Canada, traveling around a lot. And in about, I think it was the end of 2016, we went to a holiday meeting in the UK where the founder of Lush, Mark Constantine, talked. And he said that his goal was to build, so he was an entrepreneur. He started the company of Lush. And he said his goal was to empower his employees to want to start their own companies. And that's what really got me thinking about it, because one really great benefit of Lush is that it allowed you to do a lot of different things. Like in some companies, you're kind of pigeonholed. If you do finance, you just do finance and you stick within your 4 walls. But Lush was really great about giving us opportunities in different parts of the business, which gave me a background in pretty much every area of a business. So when Mark Constantine said that, his goal was to develop entrepreneurs, it really got me thinking, what is something that I'm passionate about? And, is there a business that maybe is in my future? And for me, I've been exercising since I was young. And when I was in about, not maybe high school, maybe in college, maybe senior year of high school, freshman year of college, I started my breasts got really big, and I ended up being a size 32G. And for someone that had been exercising a lot, it was kind of like, now there's nothing on the market that can support my breasts while I'm running. So I was a runner. I did step aerobics, a lot of high impact stuff. And what I was doing is I was wearing 2 and 3 sports bras at the same time. So every time I exercised, it wasn't just, you couldn't just buy a sports bra at Walmart or buy a sports bra at Target, put it on. I needed to buy these expensive sports bras and expensive, but then also 2 or 3 of them at the same time. So I was thinking to myself, there's got to be a better way to do this. And there's got to be other women out there who have the same problem. So I talked to a bunch of friends, kind of put it out to people that I knew. And I realized this was really a big gap in the market. And then we started looking at, professional sports players, Serena Williams, people with large chests that are out there, and watching them as they're playing tennis with their breast bouncing, and really figuring out that this is a big problem. So at the beginning of 2017, I started kind of designing what I thought might work. And at that time I was living in Houston. I still live most of the time in Houston. And I had a friend whose husband, he still does. He is a spacesuit designer for NASA. So his degree is in aerospace engineering. And he and I got to talking about this, and we just talked, and we kept having meetings and talked about this and talked about that. And he gave me some of the engineering perspectives and some of the things that I might need to think about when designing a sports bra. So we ended up working together. We came up with some prototypes, and that's basically where it started. And I decided to quit Lush in May of 2017. And then I started my Kickstarter for Siggy Ladone in December of 2017. And that's kind of when things, that's when I kind of stopped the cosmetic side of things and started the sports bra side of things.
So you've got a NASA engineer helping to design sports bras.
I certainly do. Yep. And he was one of the ones that was just part of the recent SpaceX launch. So he's a pretty important guy.
I think that's pretty
high
cool.
Tech.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
So in terms of developing your product, I mean, designing is part of it, and we've had some conversations in the past about the challenges of producing apparel not in the United States, offshore. Tell us a little bit about the challenges that you're running into in terms of getting prototypes, getting what you want, and figuring out how to produce your product.
Well, I will tell you that if anyone told me it was going to be this hard before I started, I would not have started. So I think maybe I want to make sure your listeners know that either believe that it's not hard, so you actually take the leap of faith, or realize that it's going to be a lot of work. So one of the first things I did in 2017 when I started was I hired a manufacturing consultant, because what I knew I needed to do was find a factory. So I had all these prototypes, but I didn't know how to get it from the prototypes, like the prototypes that I had developed, to an actual sample that we could try on customers. So in terms of the kind of the technical requirements, I've got the sports bra here. I know that the listeners can't see it, but in terms of the technical requirements of what I designed, what we designed together, it's quite complicated. So we talked to some experts, and there aren't a lot of places in the world that could, at the time, manufacture this sports bra. So we were told at the time, this is back in 2017, that due to the machinery required, there might be some factories in Eastern Europe or China. So the person that I hired, the consultant, she sourced us a factory in China. So then what we did is we had this contact in China, and we worked back and forth with them. A big challenge there was language barriers, huge challenge, because, they're not native speakers over there. And so we had a lot of wires crossed issues, but then we worked together to figure out what materials. So this is a big, long process. I'll tell you, I did the Kickstarter campaign in 2017, and that's when we raised $55,000 on Kickstarter. We doubled the goal that we had set. And that's when I got some of that money that we used toward the R&D part of it. But then it took me all of 2018 and the first part of 2019 to actually get this sellable product ready. And that's because we were going back and forth with the factory. We were trying to figure out the fabrics. We were trying to figure out, the different elastics and the elasticity that was required. And then the fit. So with a sports bra, a t-shirt, you can kind of just make a t-shirt and it'll fit over people's curves. But a sports bra really needs to be designed to go around the curves of a woman's body. So it's a lot more complicated to develop than, let's say, a pair of pants or a t-shirt. So this was a big, quite a long process. And we eventually got the version 1 prototype, the version 1 sample ready to go, and then the version 1 manufacture. So to what you were asking about, Jeff, about, the challenges of some of this stuff. I haven't had any issues with IP. I know a lot of people have issues with China, where you send them your patterns, you send them your designs, and then you see it being produced somewhere else. Haven't run into that. I think part of it might be that this is a sports bra for large-chested women, and my contact at the factory said over there that it's not a problem. They called it Amazon woman bra or something like that, or big woman bra, because when she was, holding it up to her, this little Chinese woman, obviously she didn't have the the breast assets to fill it out. So I think that might be a reason that IP wasn't an issue with us for China. But what is turning out to be an issue now is getting the same material. So now we're starting production of our version 2, and we're having a lot of trouble getting those materials again because they had been produced a couple years ago and they don't keep everything in stock. So now we're actually looking to see if we can manufacture domestically to kind of combat some of these things. So we think it would help with sourcing. We think that it would help with communication. It would allow me to be able to go and meet with the people and see if what they're producing is exactly what we want them to produce. So a lot of challenges, but we're still plugging ahead on this.
Where are you producing in China right now? I did
In
some work over there.
Xiamen. So it's Xiamen, and it's right across from Hong Kong. So I just when I sent them the most recent wire transfer, I was actually sending it to Hong Kong. So I think they have a bank in Hong Kong, and then they manufacture in the mainland of China, which is a whole other story because I went to visit China before they did the manufacturing production, and I got to eat. I think I ate dog. I think I ate the lady thought it was going to be so interesting to show this American
I know
girl.
you're telling the truth because when I went over there with our businesses, that they try to show me all these great foods that I could eat, and I said, "No, I don't need dog. I don't need."
That's exactly
I'd like
what she
to know
did.
what it is. If I was
And
nice,
she took me to this place and it was all laid out, all this different stuff. Oh, you can try any of this stuff. I said, I don't want to try any of this stuff.
I ate a lot of candy bars I brought over there and Diet Cokes.
Yep. I had Cliff Bars.
Understand.
All right. Well, that sounds like a whole different podcast. I don't know
Yep.
about.
We could talk about China for a long time.
Yeah. So you. One of the things that Gary and I always talk about, with people on the show, with people that we work with, is just the whole customer discovery, getting customer feedback as you're going through the process. How did that work for you, Jen, in terms of making adjustments to your product, trying to validate that, hey, this can be a really winning idea for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something I really like to talk about. So when I was developing the version 1, the NASA engineer that I worked with kept telling me every time he talked to me, it doesn't have to be perfect for the first version. It doesn't have to be perfect for the first version because I was the devil's in the details and I was trying to make sure that it was 100% perfect. But he's like, nope, just get something pretty darn good out there and then you can get feedback from the customers.
That's hard for a perfectionist, I assume.
Well, see, there you go. The introduction that you gave me was perfect because my type A personality said, no, we need to wait. So it ended up actually working out perfectly going through Kickstarter though, because we had 650 people buy the bra on Kickstarter. Then we sent them the bra early 2019. And after they received the bra, we were able to send out a survey to them to get their feedback. It worked really slick. So we sent out this Survey Monkey to the customers. We got back probably 250 to 300 pieces of feedback, as well as people who directly emailed. So that's another benefit of Kickstarter is that you can really interact well with your customers because they're able to just direct message you with their feedback or their thoughts or, wanting an exchange. And so we got feedback from quite a few customers and, also feedback from the people that I directly know that were wearing the bra. And then we took that feedback and that's what we changed here for version 2. So that's what I spent the beginning of 2020 and most of the middle of 2020 as well is redesigning the patterns slightly. It's just, minor tweaks, but to improve the customer experience and to make sure that we hit on most of that customer feedback for version 2.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And that sounds like it worked out very well for you.
Exactly. Yep.
So you mentioned Kickstarter, and I think you said you raised $55,000 off of Kickstarter. So kudos to you. So
Thanks.
I mean, from a funding perspective, I mean that's always a challenge for startup businesses. Do they self-fund? Do they try to secure investors, funders, friends, family? Our friend Byron from the SBTDC would say, you've got your friends, your families, and your fools who are the investors in startup businesses. What was your plan, and how has that come together for you?
Okay. Well, one thing to know about me is that I do not like to sell myself. And that is something that I would tell any entrepreneur that you need. That's a number one quality you need to have. You need to be able to sell yourself out there. When I was little and I was in Girl Scouts, I wouldn't even go door to door selling Girl Scout cookies because I was like, oh, I don't want to put these people out. I don't want to ask them to buy something from me. So I initially that's not the greatest quality. But what I had done when I was working at Lush is I saved up a whole heck of a lot of money. So when I quit Lush, I had enough money to live for 3 years and to self-fund the business. So at that time, I put about probably $150,000 of my own money into the business, add the $55,000 from Kickstarter. And so we've probably spent between $200,000 and $250,000 at this point. And, a good 3/4 of it was money that I had saved up. I didn't ask friends or family for anything other than for them to buy a bra through Kickstarter. And the reason I felt okay about doing that is because the premise of Kickstarter is that they just pay ahead and then they get the product. So they weren't necessarily investing in the company; they were buying the product ahead of time. At this point, so then in 2020, this is gonna be a long answer, Jeff. Sorry. Then in 2020, I decided to launch version 2 on Kickstarter. I hadn't fully finished version 2, but I needed the capital up front to do more of the R&D. And I started it at the end of February. We were going gangbusters. And then as soon as coronavirus hit the United States, the Kickstarter campaign, like pledges, all of a sudden just stopped. So we stopped that version 2 Kickstarter campaign. And then what I did is for the past 10 months, I've been doing consulting work, kind of freelance consulting work. So I did that to raise funds again. And now I've got a little bit more money again to keep going on version 2. The advice that I give a lot of new entrepreneurs, though, is to try to get money from other people before you start moving forward, because it can be pretty demotivating to have saved up money and just see it all declining, all this money declining until you have no money left. And, you've got your passion project here, but you don't have a ton of money to live off of anymore. So although I self-funded and funded through Kickstarter, my advice to other people is always to try to, put in some of your own money, but then get some of that fools or friends money, as you were talking about, so that the pressure isn't all on your shoulders and that you feel a little bit better as you're spending money.
So as you move forward, sort of how do you envision that working? I know that you've got some business partners that are working with you, and at some point there might be other options out there in terms of angel investors or other investors that, often they're going to want to see a little bit of traction. Sounds like you've got some traction going on out there and have a story to tell. So, is this something that you're going to try to keep, close to you, or is this something that you might look for other investors as you go out into the future?
Well, and that's a good question. And as Kickstarter started making that money, the $55,000, I did have people approach me that wanted to invest. And then I kind of went back to the same philosophy of the Girl Scout cookies, which is that if I take these people's money, there's a lot more pressure on me to succeed. Mm-hmm. Where, with my money, I may have, spent all my money, but if nothing comes of it, it's not the end of the world. Whereas if I start taking people's money, well, then I gotta, not that I would work any harder because I'm a real hardworking person, but then there's just a little bit of extra pressure. So as you pointed out, Jeff, I'm at a really good point right now where I've got a couple business partners, ladies that found the sports bra through the website. And we're really passionate about it. One of the ladies that I'm working with is someone that had been wanting to start a bra company for a long time, but found that there were so many barriers to entry, which I would say is true about the sports bra business. There are a lot of barriers to entry. And so she and I are in talks right now with her potentially investing, and another lady as well. I would really like to have the female investors because it would be nice to keep it a female owned and run company. So I'm in a really good place now with feeling positive about the future of the company enough so that I would take money because I know we're at the point right now where we're going to be pretty wildly successful the next couple of years.
And some people will say, and I'm not actually one of them, that you should be thinking about ultimately have an exit plan. To me, who knows where you're going to end up, who knows where you're going to go, but you're nodding and that seems to strike something with you.
It does. This is a great question too, because I think at the end of 2019, early 2020, when I was running out of money, I met with a venture capital company. So I went to Princeton, and there's a venture capital company that focuses specifically on Princeton entrepreneurs. And that it was a shock to me because I didn't know a lot about venture capital at the time. I do now, but it really, and these guys were nice guys, nothing against these guys, but it really felt like kind of like a shark situation, where they're like, we need 10x. So we need 10x by this date. 10x meaning, if we lend you $100,000, we expect to get $1 million back within 4 to 5 years. And their big thing for me was, what's your exit plan? And that just seems kind of like, I don't know if churn and burn is the right way of looking at it, but I'm not looking at this as something that I want to sell in 4 or 5 years. I'm looking at this as something that I want to grow and hopefully eventually be like a family business that I could, leave to my kids or at least leave to my sister. But I'm not thinking of an exit strategy. I'm thinking of keeping this growing. And I think that that's also a big difference when you start out as an entrepreneur. You kind of have to figure out, do you want to, make a quick buck, sell out and then move to something else? Or is this something that you're so passionate about that you're going to be developing it, continuing to work with it for years and years to come?
I think it's a good discussion you guys are having because when people talk about being entrepreneurs, you think about them having passion and wanting to be exactly the way you described it, as opposed to that quick hit. So I think if you're going to be successful, you need to be passionate about whatever you're doing. So,
well, and there's some people that might describe themselves as a serial entrepreneur who's
right.
They might not have a specific product or business that they're passionate about, but their passion is starting, creating, and then turning it over to somebody else and starting creating a different business. Yeah, so it depends on the person. So and Jen, sounds like your product is very personal to you, and your business is very personal to you. So it's your baby.
So. It is. It's definitely my baby, which is why for a while when after I did the Kickstarter campaign and people got the bras, so many people love the bras. And then we had a couple of people that gave some negative feedback. And I literally felt, Jeff, like they were criticizing my child. I'm like, how are you going to criticize my baby sports bra? But that's another quality that an entrepreneur really has to have, which is resilience. Mm-hmm. Because, especially like your first version, there's going to be some things that aren't perfect about it, but you've got to be resilient and realize, they're not criticizing you here. They're giving you valuable feedback that you can use to take forward. So I think resilience, I think the ability to self-promote, I think those are really key criteria if, when you're figuring out if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur.
Well, you've been at this for a few years, but you had the curveball of a pandemic thrown at you last year. And you said that you were in the midst of your second Kickstarter campaign and it sort of hit a wall there. How did working on your business change during a pandemic and how's it impacted your business?
Yeah, I think so good and bad. So the bad part of it was that I launched that second Kickstarter right as the pandemic started, and people were all of a sudden worried about their cash flow and worried about the future, worried about at that point. Remember how terrifying it was? It was like, are we even going to live? Because some of the fear at the beginning was like, oh my gosh, everyone's going to die. So everything stopped at the beginning of the pandemic, and then I needed to switch tacks. So what I ended up doing was I pulled that version 2 down. And that's when I decided to take work as a consultant at a company that was supplying industrial tents, which was becoming a really big deal in the COVID situation because there was going to be all sorts of outdoor eating, outdoor restaurants, outdoor exercising, all that kind of stuff. So then that's when I started consulting for the past 10 months for that company. And then I came back. So I basically put a pause on the sports bra business. I even stopped. So we have a few version 1s left online, not very many, and they're on sale right now on version 1. The version 1's online. But I pulled that from the website and I just did this consulting thing to make some money. And then I started back up on the sports bra business in January. And that's when these 2 potential investors, the 2 potential business partners reached out and said, Jen, it looks like you've stopped doing this. Are you ready to start up again? Mm-hmm. And that's what really gave me the confidence to and knowing it was the right time to start things back up again. So then we put the bras back on the website on sale, and we started selling through a bunch of them because people are stuck at home and people were starting to exercise a lot more because they're like, what else am I going to do? So it actually ended up working well for me, Jeff, because I was able to earn a little bit more money to put back into the business and sell quite a few bras during this pandemic time because people need their sports bras.
Yeah. It's been interesting to see how different businesses have been impacted. I mean, there's certain businesses that, it feels bad to say benefited. That's not really the word that you want to use, but have been positively impacted, and others, have been devastated by it. So it's just sort of an interesting situation there. So, well, you you've shared in terms of some of the lessons that you've learned, and I've been writing some things down in terms of resiliency, the need to self-promote, sell, and you also talked some about funding. But are there other lessons or other advice that you have out there for folks who might be considering starting a business?
Yes, I have two other besides the resiliency, the ability to self-promote, two other ones that come quickly to mind. One is it really is who you know. So when I was growing up, I was a hard-working student, and I was like, oh, it shouldn't be who you know, it should be how hard you work. Mm-hmm. But really in business, I'm finding it's a lot about connections. So my advice to you is to reach out to as many people as you can, take as many meetings as you can, even if you're not sure how that person, could eventually be part of what you're doing going forward. Build the relationships, build the connections. Also, it really does help to be more on the outgoing side, because it helps to talk about your product a lot, get people interested in your product. And then people, I have a list. So this is a good piece of advice. I have a list of about 100 people that I have made contact with over the past couple of years that have different areas of expertise. And then I'm able to go back to that list when, I need a graphic designer for this, or, I need help with someone designing packaging. And I then have talked to people who, maybe a couple years ago, I didn't think were ever going to be helpful to me. But now I go back to that list. I have someone that works at Nike, designing their sports bras. And so I've got good connections now. So that's one piece. And then the other, the final piece I would probably say is that you've really got to be brave. You got to believe in yourself, and you just got to take that leap of faith and step out there, because you're never going to feel like you're 100. It's never going to be like 100% guaranteed. There's always going to be some, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? But you really just need to be brave and believe in yourself, because this isn't the quote. I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something like, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take, or something like that,
100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Gary. Yep. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the shot. And someone also told me that in business, if you're still in business 3 years after you start, you have, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but like you're 85% more likely to be successful if you can make it that long. So I'm just trying to make it, through year 3 and 3, 4 here, year 3 and 3, 4, and hoping that there's really good things to come.
Well, it's a great story.
Yes,
Congratulations on getting so far, and we look forward to seeing your continued success and hopefully helping you and making some of those connections to make it work. You talked about being brave and bold. Are you willing to participate in our lightning round today?
Yes, that's the part I'm most excited. I only did this interview to participate in the lightning round.
All right.
There you go. See, it's legendary now.
Today's lightning round is sponsored by Globo Gym. Do you need to lose some weight and get in shape, Gary? Go to someone else's gym. If you already look good,
I don't know what to say.
If you already look good, go to Globo Gym. You can check it out on the internet.
Globo Gym.
So, Jen, we've got some.
That sounds like Garrison Keeler.
We've got some quick questions for you for some quick answers. So don't overthink it. Okay?
No, I won't.
All right. Question number 1: what is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh boy, I would say. Oh shoot. How about my boyfriend not leaving the toilet seat down? How about that?
Some of us have been trained. It takes a while, but some of us have been trained in that.
Been married for a while, you make sure that is a requirement.
Vacation spot you would most like to visit post-pandemic?
Oh my goodness, Banff. So BANFF, Banff in Alberta in Canada. I love skiing. It's a big national park, gorgeous, and you can't get to Canada right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just added this one while we were talking. Bart Starr, Brett Favre, or Aaron Rodgers?
Well, you want to know what? I would have said Aaron Rodgers if this were a couple months ago, but Aaron Rodgers is making a lot of us in Green Bay mad these days. So I'm going to go with Brett Favre, because even though he switched over to the Vikings at the end, he was a good guy, and he never let us down over here in Green Bay.
Okay. Who is your business role model? I used to say Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, or Steve Jobs, and now they all have some baggage associated with them. So who's your business role model?
So I'm going to say it's Sarah Blakely. Do you guys know who that is? The founder of Spanx? Yeah. So a story that I read about, do I have time for a quick story about Sarah Blakely?
Sure.
So she this is a story I read about her in a magazine, that she invented her Spanx. She had a prototype of it, and she just went into a department store. She was trying to sell it. The buyer was like, no, we're not interested. And she said, go try it on. The buyer went to try it on, loved it, and they decided to order from Sarah Blakely, which is how Spanx got off the ground. So I admire her tenacity and the fact that she was a great self-promoter.
Sounds good. What is your favorite summer Olympic sport?
Gymnastics. That's kind of cliche, but it is.
Well, my best friend's daughter is a gymnast for the University of Oklahoma, so I've embraced gymnastics as well. So there you go.
Wow.
So anyway, TV or movie streaming recommendation?
I am spending all my time doing the sports bra business, you guys. I'm not watching too much, but I would say that my sister got me recently hooked on Schitt's Creek.
Okay.
I don't like to say it, Schitt's Creek, but have you guys seen that? It's a comedy show on Netflix, which I am now in season 5 of.
All right. Well, you're making good progress there. Good for you. Last question. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
What initially came to me is the ability to see the future. But, I know you told me not to overthink. And I think if I overthought, I would not pick that. But having not overthought, I'm going to stick with the ability to see the future, to see what happens.
Okay.
Can I ask one?
Go ahead.
Favorite Chinese food? Dog, cat, or mystery?
You know what? I think the mystery is better because I can always just tell myself it's chicken.
That's exactly right. I agree.
Right answer. All right. Jen, you have been a fabulous guest. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
If people want to find Siggy and maybe even buy a sports bra, where should they be looking for you?
Well, they can please go to siggyladone.com, and I'll spell it. So it's SIGGIELODOEN.com. Or you can Google Siggy sports bras and it'll come up.
Okay.
But this has been such a pleasure, Gary. Pleasure to meet you, Jeff. Nice to see you again. This was wonderful.
Well, we appreciate you joining us,
great.
and it's great. And we always like to end our podcast by featuring a couple of small businesses that Gary and I have run into. So Gary, what is the small business that you're going to talk about this month?
Thanks, Jeff. The business I'd like to spotlight today is Backstreet's Restaurant. This business has a strong tie to CVCC, and it's been around for a while, but it's got a strong tie to CVCC, and we've been working with them on some different projects. So I wanted to highlight them because I've had the good fortune to get to know them and their business over the last year. Brian Norris is Backstreet's owner, and it's a story of overcoming adversity early in his life to become a very successful business person and role model for our community. Brian was a student at CVCC back in the 90s, and when he was learning about life and business, he played on our golf team at the college, the only national championship that we have at CVCC.
I didn't even know the college had a golf team.
We did back in the 90s. And
but now I know we do now have a bass fishing team.
We do have a bass fishing. I know it's one of your favorite parts of the college.
Yeah, I love those student athletes.
That's right. As we all know, it's very difficult to go to school, work, and then play a sport in college. But after he graduated, he used that determination and grit that he learned how to do all those things at one time. And he's a self-taught chef, which he learned that during school. And he's become a successful entrepreneur, as I talked about that, and started the Backstreet's Restaurant along with his wife, Suzanne. Backstreet's got an outstanding reputation in Hickory, North Carolina, and is known for great food and friendly atmosphere. My favorites are their chicken salad and cheeseburgers, but they have a lot of great specialties. Are you a fan of Backstreet's?
Oh, yeah, great chicken salad.
Exactly. His Hickory restaurant's been so successful, they opened another Backstreet's in Columbia, South Carolina, just a few years ago. And that was because Brian and Suzanne answered to the desire of their kids as they're growing up to grow the business. And the Columbia Backstreet's is managed by their children.
Okay.
Pretty cool. So it's a true family success story.
Franchising opportunities.
And there you go. And it really is a good place. And he's a great guy. So is Suzanne. If two businesses that are successful wasn't enough, they've started a new business, The Loft on the Square here in Hickory, which is a event venue for different things. Small businesses and companies. Well, big companies can have their meetings and stuff off campus from their business, and he's doing a great job. And so we're looking forward to the next business the Norris is going to start to add to the charm of Hickory, North Carolina.
Oh, very good. All right. Well, the business that I've run into this month is something called Andy Factory. And Andy Factory is the creation of a young man, only 17 years old, Andrew Burton. He's been operating it informally since he was 5 years old in 2008. Andy Factory specializes in making unique and flavorful barbecue sauces, and his best product is called Uncle Del's Mambo sauce. Uncle Del refers to his late stepfather, who was in the U.S. Army, who he holds in very high esteem, and basically says if the quality of my product would meet his criteria, it's a good product. As I mentioned, he founded Andy Factory when he was 5 years old. He's making cookies for a homeschool project. And his mom assigned him the task of creating a business, and cuteness in his mom's baking made his cookie project a big success. He made $700. And they've gone on to create their own sauce called the Mambo sauce, and it's been a hit. He aspires to be a pediatric anesthesiologist, but increasingly he sees Andy Factory as his future. He's only a rising senior in the Washington, D.C. area in high school. He's got his product in several restaurants and stores in the Washington, D.C. area, which is where he resides. And if you go to www.andyfactory.com, you can read about Andrew Burton and his Mambo sauce and see some of the cool stuff that he's done. So anyway, we always like to hear about the young entrepreneurs out there. So anyway, that's we'll wind things up today. If our listeners out there have a suggestion for a business of the month, send them to us at eexchange@themesh.tv. And if we use yours, you'll get one of our fabulous prize packs. We want to thank Jen Paulson for joining us today. Thank you so much, Jen. Good job by you. We want to thank the Mesh Podcast Network. Best wishes to everyone. Stay healthy. Enjoy your summer. Get outside. Get active. And we look forward to talking with you next month.
Looking forward to it. Everybody be safe.